You ever wake up one morning and realize you're living in someone else's idea of control? That's how it started for me, just another peaceful sunrise over Lake Halston, coffee in hand. Quiet music playing the kind of silence you earn after decades of chaos. I'd spent my life working in law enforcement, retired into something quieter. Nobody in the neighborhood knew I used to wear a federal badge. I didn't brag, didn't post photos of handshakes in Washington. I just wanted peace. What I didn't expect was that peace would come under siege from a woman who believed an HOA title made her untouchable. Her name was Miranda Lowell, president of the Halston Cove Homeowners Association, a woman who wore pearls like they were rank insignia. She ran the community like a personal Empire City inspectors. In her pocket, her husband sitting on the zoning board and neighbors too scared to question a single order she gave. When she decided your hedges were too tall, they'd be cut by sunrise. When she decided your fence violated aesthetic balance, you'd get fined before your morning coffee cooled. For 2 years, I kept my head down. My place sat at the edge of the lake, a renovated 1900s mansion I'd bought through a federal property auction. To the locals, I was just the guy with the big house and the small car. No one knew that the home technically sat under federal jurisdiction, or that its previous owner had lost it in a massive financial crime case. I didn't talk about it because, frankly, it wasn't anyone's business. But Miranda decided one day that it was. It started with a yellow slip taped to my front door, emergency inspection notice. According to the HOA, there were reports of electrical hazards that required immediate evacuation. Strange thing was, I'd just had the entire system updated 6 months earlier. Certified. Inspected. Perfect. Still, I played along. Old habits die hard. You don't confront corruption head-on. You document it. So that night I turned every camera and motion sensor on every hidden recorder, humming quietly inside the old woodwork. Around midnight, 2 figures crept along my hedge-line flashlights, low toolkits in hand. They popped the cover on my electrical panel and loosened connections, creating exactly the kind of hazard that justifies a city condemnation. I watched them for 30 minutes, their faces caught clearly on thermal view. When they left, I poured myself another coffee and thought, so this is how we're playing it. The next morning, a nervous city inspector named Thomas knocked on my door. You could tell he didn't like what he was doing. "Sir, we've got a serious fire risk," he muttered, flashlight trembling as he pointed at the loosened wiring. I nodded, all polite. "Of course," I said, "mind if I film for insurance?" His face went pale. By noon, Miranda showed up in heels, sharp enough to scratch the marble floor, carrying a folder thicker than a Bible. "Mr. Harlan, this property's unsafe. You'll need to vacate within 24 hours, she said, flashing that politician's smile that never reached her eyes. I asked, "And under what authority does the HOA manage city safety enforcement?" Her smile twitched. "We have a cooperative agreement," she said. "We're here to help." I almost laughed. "Help?" I repeated, "You mean seize?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Refusal to comply with an emergency order is a criminal offense. I'd hate for you to make this harder than it has to be." That's when I knew she wasn't just greedy. She was confident, connected. I told her I'd consult with some federal contacts about procedure. That flicker of fear in her eyes worth every ounce of patience I'd saved up. I left the next morning, checking into a hotel across the lake with a perfect view of my property. Within hours, trucks rolled in, catering decorators, valet attendants. By evening, my mansion had become a glittering venue for Miranda's charity gala. Chandeliers, glowing champagne, flowing laughter echoing off my stolen walls. She even invited the local news to cover her generous donation of the venue for a children's fundraiser. Watching her on TV, standing where I usually drank my morning coffee, saying, "This home represents the spirit of our community." I nearly choked on my drink. But the cameras I'd hidden told the real story, Miranda leading investors through my private study, bragging about how she'd soon acquire this estate officially. Every word recorded, every lie time-stamped. I didn't need revenge. I needed patience. 2 days later, she called me at the hotel. "Mr. Harlan," she said sweetly, "I know this situation has been stressful. I'd like to offer a solution, a purchase agreement. Given the damage, I can take this off your hands quickly. Cash." Her offer was laughable. Half the home's value, maybe less. I played along. "I'll think about it," I said. And when she hung up, I forwarded every piece of footage to the Judicial Protection Division. Now here's where it got interesting. See, Miranda didn't know she'd picked a federal property or that she was threatening a man who'd spent decades prosecuting public corruption. Within 24 hours, the U.S. Marshals were on the case, but I asked them for one favor. Let her finish the show. That weekend, she threw another party, bigger, bolder cameras everywhere. She'd even invited a few state reps. When I walked up to my own gate, she had security try to stop me. "This property has been condemned," she yelled loud enough for the cameras to catch it. I smiled. "Ma'am, you're hosting an event on federally protected property. Are you sure you want to make that statement on record?" Her confidence cracked just a little, but she still smirked. "I'm the HOA president. I have full authority." That's when half a dozen black SUVs turned the corner. Federal plates. Agents stepped out in jackets marked Department of Justice. The crowd went dead silent. I turned to her calmly and said, "Miranda, I'd like you to meet Special Agent Roth. She's got a few questions about your little party." The look on Miranda's face, that slow realization that her world had just flipped, was something I'll never forget. "You can't arrest me," she whispered as the cuffs clicked around her wrists. "I'm on the city council's planning board." Agent Roth smiled. "Then you understand paperwork. You'll be signing plenty." Her husband was arrested an hour later. Turns out he'd signed off on half the fake condemnations that allowed their scam to run. 7 families, $2.3 million stolen in property equity. Every one of them came forward once the news broke. The local media that once filmed her galas now broadcast her perp walk in glorious HD. At her sentencing, the judge, one of my former colleagues, said it best. "You weaponize trust and government power for personal gain. That's not community service. That's organized crime. 15 years. No parole. Federal time." It took a while to restore my home after all that. The marble floors had scuff marks from her parties. The wine cellar was missing half its bottles, and my library smelled faintly of her perfume for months. But every morning now, when I sit on the terrace overlooking the lake, I remember the lesson. Sometimes silence isn't peace. It's just the calm before justice clears its throat. A few months later, I got a letter from prison. Miranda wanted help with her appeal, claimed she was misunderstood. I sent it back unopened. Justice doesn't need conversation. It needs closure. These days, the neighborhood's quieter. The new HOA president actually waves when she drives by. The families who lost their homes got them back. And Halston Cove has become something better honest. You know, sometimes the system really does work, especially when you let the guilty hang themselves with their own arrogance. So tell me, what would you have done in my place? Played along like I did, or confronted her head-on from day one? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one. And if you believe that power should never trump justice, make sure you subscribe, because next week's story involves an HOA that tried to foreclose on a Navy veteran while he was deployed overseas. Let's just say that one doesn't end quietly either.